Michelob Ultra Tuscan Orange Grapefruit. My God, America is imploding.
Hey, this is Fanzone. Fanzone debate. I don't have Stitch's ass on my shirt today. I have Grogu. And if you call him anything other than that, like an old man today at church pointed at me and said, "It's Yoda." And I said, "No, it's Grogu. You can't tell me any different. This is debate. I debated him, and now we have two people here to debate each other today." Hi, I'm Tim. Like I said, Fanzone debate. Very excited. This is the second match in round the semifinals of the tournament. I'm very excited. Nick versus Kirk. Kirk is the number 1 seed of the tournament, having a really, really great tournament run so far. In round 1, he played Joe Farrelly, and then he played Andrew Barr in a knockout last round, and now he's playing Nick. Nick played Nico Suave Rigoli, also a knockout, and then went on to beat Caleb Boatman. So both of these guys have had good matches, and Cody is here with me today as well to judge this one, which I'm sure will be the most fun thing we've ever done ever. Cody, how you feeling?
Wait, that's not Yoda? When did they give him a name? Still haven't watched it. Second, I feel like you add age to both of these people, and they remind me of like an uncle that I used to argue with at like barbecues. Like they're always constantly right. They always just like have to beat you over the head with facts that they say. So it's gonna be a lot of fun watching them both yell at each other. I'm really excited for that. But again, Kirk, I'll say it, bitch slapped Andrew Barr. Like came in here and just whooped him. And I hope Barr sees this, and I hope I get a message right after he sees this. And Nick played Boatman, which I'm glad that he doesn't play Kirk now, because now it's like this endless battle of people he doesn't want to argue with, and it's like going to continue. So that's my favorite thing ever. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned their age. Kirk probably in the early to mid 40s area, and Nick looks like he's 21 but acts like he's 64. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this evening. Robert, you're also here. How are you feeling about the match?
I am also here. I am excited for this one. There's nothing I love more than a good screaming match, except maybe 2 good screaming matches happening like at the same time in sort of a big room. But we're only going to get half of that today, and I'm still excited for it.
That's fair. So we'll bring in Mr. Twohig.
That was me screaming.
He's the 4 seed, Nick Twohig. Welcome. Nick, like I said, you knocked out Nico in round number 1. You played Caleb Boatman. That one went down to the wire. And now you're playing Kirk. How are we feeling?
Can I play Nico again? 2. Happy Father's Day to my opponent. Women don't like me, so therefore I have no offspring. So congratulations on that front. And 3, it's going to be fun, man. I like to consider these just like a conversation. And you heard it here first. Cody said I'm always right. Play the tape back. Don't care.
That's fair.
Your brain, yes.
Yep. Nope. Can't. You said it.
Okay, let's bring in the number 1 seed. It's Kirk Kowalkowski. Kirk, welcome. Like I said, number 1 seed. You played Joe Farrelly, and then you went on to, as Cody likes to put it, bitch slap Andrew Barr. And you talked about your favorite thing ever, classic musicals in that match.
Absolutely, yeah, that was great.
That was a great time. How are you feeling about playing Nick now?
Well, right now I'm just imagining you screaming at an old man in church about Grogu, and that's a really fun image. I'm going to carry that with me for a while. I see you like crawling over the pew. It's Grogu, not Yoda.
That's fair.
But no, I'm excited to play Nick. I'm nervous about it because Nick they're players who know their stuff, and they're players who can talk, and Nick's a player who's both. So it's it's going to be a challenge. But Nick's fun. It's going to be a good time either way. Anytime you get to hang out and do something like this with Nick, it's going to be a good time. So win or lose, it's going to be a good time for everybody, I think.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. Here's how the show's going to work. We gave the players 4 questions based on categories that they drafted. They then answered those questions and are now going to debate them. They each have a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform debate between the two of them, followed by a 1-minute closing for each of them. At the end of the round, Cody, Robert, and I will write who we think won the point on our handy dandy whiteboards / telephones, if I know Robert correctly. And then whoever gets the best 2 out of 3 of those votes will win the point. If we are tied after the 4 questions, 2-2, we will go to a speed round question to decide the winner for the 3rd point. Are there any questions from the competitors before we get into the first debate?
Nope.
Awesome. Well, let's do this thing. All right, guys. First question is going to be in the category of, it's everyone's favorite. It's Jimmy Bond. The question is, what is the best performance in a Roger Moore Bond film? So many to choose from. So, Kirk, you drafted this. So, Kirk, you get to go first. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
When you talk about great performances in Roger Moore Bond movies, honestly, not a lot of things come to mind. It wasn't a bright spot in the series as far as acting performances. But the more I thought about it, the more I considered one character, and it is Mayday, played by Grace Jones in A View to a Kill. I picked a character. She creates a character with amazing physical presence, amazing emotional presence. It is a Bond girl in an era where the Bond girl wasn't that strong, where she is a match not only for the villain, but also for Bond herself. She matches with him mentally, physically, sexually. She is very much right on par with him. She can keep up with him, and she has a lot of great character moments and a great character building. She creates one of the most memorable characters in the Moore era of the franchise. You talk to anybody about that time, Mayday is going to be top people's list of who they think about, and I think Grace Jones' performance is a big part of that.
All right, Sir Nicholas, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Okay, so the least atrocious performance in a Roger Moore Bond film, which is how I've decided to reword the question, is that of Christopher Lee in Man with the Golden Gun, the legend Christopher Lee playing Francisco Scaramanga, the man with the golden gun himself. I picked this performance in particular because, like I said, there's really not a whole lot to choose from. You have sort of stereotypical Bond villains, stereotypical Bond girls, all backed by like not great performances throughout the entirety of these movies. Christopher Lee does something interesting with Scaramanga in that he gives us a villain that's different. He builds Scaramanga in a way that shows us that his motivations are not the same as a stereotypical mustache swirling Bond villain. He is a person who loves the fight. He's a person who has everything, doesn't need anything else, but he just loves what he does so much and he wants to be the best at it. And Christopher Lee's performance is really what makes that sort of come to life and really stand out, and is deserving of being the title character of a Bond film, unlike another generic performance.
All right. 5 minutes freeform. Don't talk over each other. I'll come in and give you a 1 minute warning. One of you starts talking.
I would say when you say least atrocious, I think that's a good way of putting a good way of framing the pick you made. Not that it's accurate, but because it is incredibly safe. I think people look at Christopher Lee and they say, "Oh yeah, it's Count Dooku, it's Saruman." We know all this great stuff about Christopher Lee. He's such a cool guy. Unfortunately, he doesn't bring any of that energy to this performance. I think his performance is very just dull. I think it's even though his motivation might be different, he plays as a very stereotypical Bond villain. He doesn't really bring any. This character is actually meant to be like an anti-Bond. And he doesn't have any of that like energy or suaveness that James Bond does. He's just very one note. He's the second most interesting character villain in this movie. I think Hervé Villechaize as his henchman, Knick-Knack completely steals the show. I think if we're going to talk about somebody, I think he gives a much more interesting performance. Christopher Lee is incredibly one note in this.
I think Hervé is more of a shtick, if I'm being honest. And I don't think That's how the man with the golden gun is supposed to be. I don't think he's supposed to be the anti-Bond. I think he's supposed to be actually more similar to Bond than Bond villains, because stereotypical Bond villains are the anti-Bond. They're the stoic, like, businessmen trying to rule the world. Christopher Lee brings sort of like he sort of parallels Bond in that way, in that he has the suaveness, he has the rich stuff, he has the girls, all these things. Grace Jones does nothing. She brings a physical performance, sure. Her emotional performance, she has the same face the entirety of the movie. Everything that you said was sort of about character and not so much about the performance. And even the character, like that, it just doesn't come through for me. Whenever she has to talk, it's atrocious. At the end, when she says, "Get Zorin for me," I laugh every time because it's the least believable thing I've seen. Christopher Lee it might be the safe choice, but if it's the safe choice, that's because it's a good performance. And he does bring that sort of suaveness that Christopher Lee brings to his roles. What's the word? You know the word.
I understand what you're saying, but I disagree with you.
That was the word.
I think he is more one note. When I say he's supposed to be the anti-Bond, he's supposed to be like the mirror image of Bond, and I don't think he is. I think he's very flat compared to Roger Moore in this. I completely disagree with you. I think Grace Jones does a lot. I think her relationship with Bond is very. She brings a lot of energy to that. She's very excited. She's very slick in the way she deals with him. She keeps up with Max Zorin and his character. And that end scene where she has a lot of emotional moments. That scene's where she realizes her friends are dying and she sees her friends die and she's crying out their name. There's some real emotional beats there. And that end scene where she goes out the tunnel and she's yelling, "Get him for me." And then she goes out, she's laughing because she knows she's about to die, but she's laughing because she knows she's going to screw her plan and she gets to see him. That's a great moment. That's a great performance moment there for her. I disagree completely. She's her performance in this is all over the place in a good way, where there's high energy moments, there's sadness, there's the gravitas of her death scene and her sacrifice. I think she brings a lot to this. I think she brings something completely different that no one else does with her physical presence, just her idea of challenging the gender norms of you get with most Bond girls. She's something completely different, and yeah, it's a physical part of her performance, but physicality is a part of the performance, absolutely. And I think she brings all that. She brings all that to the table, something completely different, completely new. And Christopher Lee is just another Bond villain.
So I think because she lifted weights before the movie started filming, I don't think that's as impressive as bringing character. I don't think she laughs at the end. I could be wrong, but I don't think she laughs at Zorin. I'm pretty sure she just sort of motions towards him. That moment you're talking about, you're right. It's a well-written moment where she's supposed to realize that her friends are dying and that Zorin turned on her, but you don't believe it because she can't act. She doesn't she doesn't portray the emotions you're talking about. When you're talking about the sex scene, the relationship she has with Bond, that scene, all it is she literally keeps the same stoic face that she's had the whole movie. She goes into the bedroom and then she's just naked in the bed and then we cut away. That's the entirety of Bond and Mayday's relationship. There's really nothing else. Scaramanga is he's not a stereotypical Bond villain. He has a sense of humor. He's passionate about his work. He's not just passionate about taking over the world, these stereotypical things. He has an island all to himself, but he makes me believe that he is a man who wants more than anything to kill Bond, as opposed to just take over the world like the rest of the villains.
But everything's
a good supporting cast, but I think
everything you're saying about Grace Jones, I'd say about Christopher Lee. It's an interesting character, but I don't think he brings anything to it. I think her character is probably less interesting on paper, but her performance brings so much more to it. And I disagree with you about that sex scene. There's that whole part where she's sticking her head out the door, looking at Zorin, "What do I do?" And they're like, "Okay, go for it." And she's one step ahead of Bond that whole time. It's like a cat and mouse game. There's a whole lot going on in that scene. With Lee, like I said, I don't think there's much. He has as much going on with his performance.
Happy Father's Day, Kirk.
Thank you.
All right, Nick, you get to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So Kirk mentioned that on paper, Grace Jones's character is supposed to be better. She's like a KGB drug-enhanced agent who was raised to be this agent from birth, and now she's working for this rich horse breeder. You don't get... That's an interesting character on paper. It's really not interesting in the movie. It makes A View to a Kill one of the worst movies. She makes no different facial things throughout the entire movie. She just has this one stoic face because she's supposed to be this physical presence. And yes, she did a great job at lifting weights before the movie, but that's really all she brings to the performance. There's nothing else. Christopher Lee brings the suaveness, makes him a parallel to Bond. I think he actually does it pretty successfully in the sense that he's very confident in who he is, and he makes it clear that his goals are not the same as stereotypical Bond villains. It's a well-written character backed by a person with a lot of gravitas who brings their name to the role, and it makes him a good and interesting Bond villain. I'd much rather watch The Man with the Golden Gun over A View to a Kill, because Grace Jones just adds nothing to it, whereas Scaramanga is one of the best Bond villains, honestly, all before Daniel Craig came along.
All right. Kirk, you now have 1 minute when you start talking.
Nick's talking a lot about Christopher Lee's goals in this movie, and yeah, they're different than normal Bond villain. But my point was he doesn't bring anything different into the performance itself. Just because he has different goals than a normal Bond villain, he should be different, and he is not. He's very much, oh, good to see you, Mr. Bond. Very one note, just everything else. You know, like he said, he brought a name. That's what he is in this movie. He's a name. But you ask go out in the street and ask a normie, a civilian, not one of us, who played the Man with the Golden Gun. They're not going to remember. They're going to remember who Grace Jones was in that movie. Yeah, View to Kill is not great, but she is the saving grace, no pun intended, because of how interesting her performance is. She is a completely different Bond girl, something we've never seen before in a Bond girl, and the way she's used and the way her performance plays out because of the unique physical and acting performance she gives. The final 10 minutes in that scene, I'd say, is the best performance by any Bond villain. When she sees her friends die and she finally has to sacrifice herself, she does look up and laugh. There is a moment where she's laughing to herself like, I got him. I'm going to die, but I got him, and it's great.
Oh, Lord. This is going to be a long night.
No pun intended, my ass.
Oh.
I saw that Cody ended his name with a K.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to tell who's writing what.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Oh, I can write like Holtz. I'll write like Holtz. I can write like Payson. You can't read it. That's what you want.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it was the battle of one note versus one note. So,
I mean,
okay.
Both argued
there weren't a lot of good choices for this.
What's the prettiest turd in
literally when Cody messaged me and was like, "This is what I want to do," I was like, "Yeah."
You pick it, I'm doing it.
All right. Okay, I'll go first. I went with Kirk. I think Kirk's closing was really strong. Honestly, it was even to me most of the time. Every time Nick had something about, okay, she's just a physical performance, Kirk gave me things about why it was also part of the performance and not just physical. And then same thing to when Kirk would say something about Lee, Nick had something to rebut it. But at the end of the day, I think Kirk's closing sold it for me just on the fact that he was saying about Christopher Lee not bringing anything to the table, and he brought a lot of stuff about Grace Jones that won it over. It was really, really close, though. I honestly could have gone either way, but I'm giving mine to Kirk. Cody, you get to go next.
Yeah, I think I went opposite with you. I went Nick. Okay. The reason why I went with Nick is because I think Kirk let open an opening, basically the safe choice, which Nick was able to turn it around, basically making it the correct choice. And he used his star power, but I think Nick's closing won it for me. I think how he was able to describe it. I think they both pretty much they both hit on the same notes. It was basically came down to closing versus closing, and I had to side with Nick on the closing for me. But
all right,
it was close. It was super close.
Yeah, Robert, you get to decide it.
Yeah, this one was also pretty even most of the way through, and basically for the same reasons that Tim said, I went with Kirk. I think that Kirk's closing was very, very good, and when he talked about how a lot of what was being argued, the goals and things like that, how that's about the character and how it's written, not necessarily the performance itself. So I thought that was a good note to end it on, and I thought Kirk took it home.
All right. So Kirk wins point number 1. We will move on to question number 2, which was drafted by Mr. Twohig in the category of sci-fi fantasy. And the question is, what is the most mind-blowing scene in a sci-fi film? Nick, you drafted this. You get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So, mind-blowing is an interesting word to use for this. Every definition I found for the word mind-blowing involves some sort of like confusion, makes you think, exciting and shocking, but not just exciting and shocking. It makes you think, which is why I picked the end scene from Inception. The spinning top wobbles right at the end, and then we cut to black. The reason I picked it is because it makes you think about the entire movie. It makes you excited as to what the possible implications of it are. And it's incredibly shocking because you think the hero has achieved their goal of they've gotten out of the dream world and they've gone to see their kids again. But you realize that all might be a lie. It makes you think long after the movie's over, and it makes you go back and rewatch and look for different things the second time. I think that's why that scene in particular, the implications is that, the top's still spinning. Are we still in a dream? Is this reality? It causes you to question your own reality when watching the movie. And to me, nothing blows your mind more than having to sit there and question your own reality. Which is why I picked the end scene from Inception.
Time. I like that you added that last little bit to fill out the time. Thank you very much.
Oh, of course. Anytime.
Appreciate you. All right, we're going to go over to Kirk for your opening. 1 minute when you start talking.
Like Nick said, there's a lot of different ways you can define mind-blowing, and especially for sci-fi in the sci-fi genre. A lot of moments that are known for being mind-blowing. I went with the one I think is the most iconic and the most actually mind-blowing is the chestburster scene from Alien. It is just a iconic moment. It's been parodied and been done to death. But when you originally see that moment, and it comes out of nowhere, and it kind of just changes the game. It within the movie and without just sci-fi in general, it's like, wow, anything can happen. It just the way they created these aliens, what they could do, how they breed, and what they do to people was just something completely new and mind-blowing. And that scene, and just knowing behind the scenes, the story behind it, and the actors not being aware of what's happening, or that exactly what was going to happen, and how knowing when you're watching it that their minds are literally being blown as well, just adds another layer to it. Just such an incredible, mind-blowing scene of the chestburster.
All right, time. All right. I love both of these films, so I actually know what you're talking about. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So you use the word iconic a lot. I think that's what I would call your moment more so than mind-blowing. And I won't hang my hat on this, but you're right. It has been parodied a lot. I wasn't shocked the first time I saw Alien because I had seen Spaceballs. The thing about the chestburst scene, it does not make you think beyond the moment, because the fact of the matter is the alien comes out and you go, oh, okay, the thing that was attached to its face planted eggs in him. And then you're done thinking about it. Yes, it's a jump scare at the end of the day. And it is iconic, you're right, but it doesn't make you think. It doesn't really blow your mind. It's just a jump scare sort of exciting thing that you figure out pretty quickly. And I didn't know the thing about the actors, and it really doesn't make it any more or less mind-blowing.
Well, it has been parodied, but I'm not going to penalize my movie because you were younger and you didn't see it first.
No, that's fair.
But yeah, again, I would say exactly what you're saying. We're going to be arguing semantics here, but mind-blowing is a moment. Mind-blowing is a visceral thing. Your moment is a moment that makes you go, that's interesting. And then you think about it, you go home, maybe you talk about your friends, the conversation with your friends, maybe they make a point, maybe you're like, wow, that blew my mind. But a lot of things have to fall into place for your moment to blow your mind. My moment is one moment, it's visceral, it happens, and it's not just it changes the entire movie. It's not just, oh, it happens, you're done, you don't think about it. That is the fear of the entire movie, is these things are going to get inside of you, and they are going, and they're going to violate you. I mean, the whole thing, I mean, it's a metaphor, it's a rape metaphor, the whole thing, and it's these things get inside you and they're going to do that to you. I mean, that's horrifying. That follows you through the whole movie. Who's going to get that thing on their face next? And that's even through the whole franchise. When you see one of those things pop open, you're like, oh my god, when that thing gets on somebody's face, what's going to happen? So I mean, to say that's one moment is kind of ridiculous, because it is iconic for a reason. But I mean, not only is it iconic in this movie, but it changed like the way sci-fi movies were made, in that at any moment, what's going to happen. It's up there with like a Matrix, popping out of the pod Matrix. Like, okay, this is a game changer. Everything's different now.
So, I mean, in future movies, what's going to happen because you've seen it happen. So it's not like mind blowing every time. The other thing I would say is that, shit, I just forgot what I was going to say. Hang on, I'll come back to it. So Inception, you said a lot of things have to fall in place. That's a good thing. Watch the movie, and all of those pieces will fall in place, and then you'll be able to figure it out by the end. It makes you think. Just because a movie makes you think doesn't make it a bad thing. I think mind-blowing means you have to sit there and it affects you. Yes, I think this is what I was going to say. Okay, the premise of Alien is that you're on a ship with an alien. Yes, it might be scary that they get inside you, but the fact of the matter is you're on a ship with an alien. That's the scary part. Not just the fact that an alien could burst out of your chest. The fact is the alien could eat you and you could die. I don't want to die either way. I don't think the chest burst scene is necessarily the mind-blowing part, game-changing part of the movie. The part is, okay, we're on a ship with aliens. How do we react to this situation? Like I said, it's just a jump scare at the end of the day because you don't think about it much further. You go, okay, the alien laid eggs in his chest. I don't really need to think about it any further. The reason the top moment is shocking is because you thought the movie was over. You thought the hero achieved their goals, and now you're realizing, crap, maybe they didn't. You realize it's exciting for the same reason, and it's confusing and makes you think because you have to think back through the entirety of the movie. Wait, was there a moment that I missed where he didn't get out of the dream world, where he's still stuck in like the third layer or something like that? And it makes you go back and rewatch the movie, and your mind is blown every time.
Okay, first of all, lots of movies where you're stuck on a spaceship with an alien and they can eat you, okay? None of them are like Alien because of the fact that you know that, oh my God, you're like, oh, they lay in your chest, no big deal. That's horrifying. That's the whole, that's the terror of this movie, of being violated, like have this thing pop out of your body. Don't try to compare that to any other sci-fi movie. Nothing's been done like that before. This was completely new, something completely different. And the fact you're saying that, oh, you got to think about it, you go back. Well, if you think about it, you go back and you find that moment in the movie that is, oh yeah, that's the connection to the spinning top. That's when your mind's blown. That's the mind-blowing thing. The fact that you have to, your thing is, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's a slow burn. And eventually you go back, like I said, maybe you have a conversation with somebody, you see there, say like, oh, okay, now I get it. That's mind-blowing. That's the top scene in and of itself isn't mind-blowing. That just gets, that's like the light in the fuse. And then you go on and, other things happen to blow your mind. Your mind doesn't get blown in that moment. If it turned out like out of nowhere, oh my God, it was a dream all the time, maybe that's like a sixth sense thing. Okay, that's a little mind-blowing. But yours is not mind-blowing because it's just the first step in a lot of homework you got to do to get to your mind blown.
I liked homework in high school. And the fact of the matter was, whether it's a slow burn, it's the first step in having your mind blown, because when that moment happens, all of those different scenarios that you just said, they all enter your head at the same time, literally blowing your mind. You have to cipher through which one could really happen. Did this happen? And you have to think back about the movie.
Kirk, you now have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Nick said himself, his moment is the first step. And in and of itself, it is not mind-blowing. It's just something that makes you start to think. You go back, you look at the movie again, you think about it more, and slowly you might get to a point where your mind's blown. I don't know. But it's a slow burn. A mind-blowing moment is one moment, it's visceral. It's, oh my God, what is happening? And that's what my moment is. Like I said to Nick, there's never been a movie like this before, never a moment in a movie like this before. It's unlike anything else we've seen. And there's a reason why, this is still considered one of the most horrifying moments, one of the scariest moments, one of the most surprising moments in movie history, one of the most mind-blowing moments in movie history 40-some years later, because of just that visceral reaction you have to that thing come out of your chest. That's not just a jump scare. That's something that sticks with you for the rest of the movie, the rest of all of these movies, that fear and that terror that always happened because of that one initial mind-blowing moment. Nick's, like I said, is interesting, but it's by no means mind-blowing in and of itself.
Time. All right. We'll move over to Nick for his closing. Nick, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
So, the first step of having your mind blown means that moment is mind blowing, and then you have to go on the rest of your day with your mind having been blown. To me, that is much more effective than just a singular jump scare that you figure out what happens pretty instantly. There have been movies where people are trapped in confined spaces with things that will kill you. Psycho is a pretty good example. But then, I don't think the fact that the alien laid eggs in you is all that much of a game changer. Yes, it's iconic because it's shot really well and it's a really good script and it's a really good movie and it's parodied in every other movie since. So if you've seen any other movie, you won't be shocked by this moment. So it takes away the shock factor. It's not confusing at all because you figure it out right away. The moment in Inception makes you think about the rest of the movie. It makes you look at the movie a second time differently, as opposed to having to go on into future films and then be aware like, oh, okay, this thing could lay eggs in you. I think having to watch the movie a second time with a different mindset, that it's because your mind got blown. If your friends have to help you because they bring up alternate points, the fact is this one moment kicks off this whole flow of mind blowing because you have to think about the entirety of the movie and what could have happened.
You're giving me flashbacks. You guys good? All right, Robert, your vote didn't count, or no, you decided it rather last time.
Sure
So
did.
you get to go first.
So these were both kind of weird picks, honestly. Like when I'm hearing all these questions for the first time. When I first heard this question, like neither of these immediately jumped to my head, and hearing both competitors argue about it, like I see the arguments that are being made. Ultimately, I went with Nick. I think that the talking about we didn't go for the cheap joke of just like Inception. There's layers to the mind blowing, but I did like that. Nick said that moment really stays with you, and it is just like a kind of moment, rather than shocking, iconic. Nothing really changes about the tone of the movie Alien when that happens. I like that argument from Nick, so that's why I went with Nick.
I'm very interested to see if, like last week, me and Cody are on the same page tonight, or if we are not on the same page tonight. I went with Nick on this one, mostly for the same reasons that Robert said. I thought that Kirk had a good argument, but I think Nick's whole point of like the parody thing didn't really matter for me, but the thing about like it's very like it's shocking, but then you quickly understand, okay, this is why it's happening, and you move on with the movie, and the rest of the movie is good, is great. Whereas the moment in Inception blows your mind and makes you analyze the whole movie over again, over and over. So I went with Nick for that. Cody, tell me if I'm crazy.
It's gonna be a crazy week. No, I'm with you on Nick. The point is, when your mind gets blown and when can it be achieved and can it happen post is a lot of conversations we can have after this call. I just think overall, one of my favorite quotes ever is, I like homework, which is fair. I think overall it was I didn't give any discredits to like parodies or anything like that. I just think there was a lot of attack on Alien, and the top is kind of, but I'm with Robert. I even said this to Tim when we put this question.
Yep, you did.
Probably not even top 15 of what I would even put. So and you guys made it super entertaining, and it was really close. So that's why you guys are in this position you are.
But I will say this: if we were arguing which is the better movie, I give it to Kirk. Because Alien is better than Inception. Sorry, it is. Okay, so we're gonna move on to question.
Is that a conversation?
You guys want to go and we'll judge?
We will move on to question number 3. This is the next category that Kirk drafted. It is in the category of horror. And the question is, what is the best zombie moment in a Romero dead movie? Interesting that he's picking Andrew Barr's strength for this match, but it is what it is. So Kirk, you drafted this, so you get to go first. 1 minute when you start talking.
For the best zombie moment in a dead movie, I went with the seminal moment of Day of the Dead. It's when Bub tracks down, hunts down, and eventually causes the death of Captain Rhodes. This is a moment in the zombie evolution of this whole series. This is the movies where you start to kind of root for the zombies. You start to see the zombies as the underdogs, as the other, and it's perfectly encapsulated the character of Bub. Bub, beforehand, it's set up where he's being taught to kind of learn rudimentary human things again, and Captain Rhodes is the stereotypical he's just a dumb zombie, he can't do this, and then it pays off at the end here where Bub hunts him down, and eventually, like I said, it leads to Captain Rhodes being killed by the zombies. But it's just a great moment of comeuppance against the humans for the zombies, and like I said, it's a great moment of zombie evolution that plays out through the rest of the series.
All right, time. Nearly Headless Nick, you now have 1 minute when you start talking to open your argument.
So, biggest Romero zombie fan right here. No one even comes close. The moment I picked was when Karen kills her parents in the basement in the original Night of the Living Dead. I think the important thing about the most exciting zombie moment has to do with what I think Romero was going for when you describe zombies, and that is the fact that anyone could be one, and and you lose your mind. That's the scariest part about zombies, is your best friend could be a zombie and they're just gone, even though their physical presence is still there, and they could eat you. I think that's what is really encaptured in this moment when Karen, who's a little girl, her father goes down to the basement to check on her because she got injured earlier in the movie, and obviously she got bitten by a zombie. And so she. Sorry, the private chat just distracted me. Am I saying something wrong?
No, you're good. You're good. Robert asked a question. You're good. You can have.
What's the wording of this? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no, you can get your
like 15 seconds. Probably.
Yeah, you were at 42, so you can keep going, and I'll give you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So Karen's a little girl in the basement. Her dad comes down to check on her, and she becomes a zombie. Takes her dad's arm off, eats him, and then her mom comes down horrified, and she kills her mom. That to me is the exemplary of what what zombies are, how scary they can be. The fact that a little girl could kill her parents. I think that's the most. I think that's the best zombie moment in a theatrical Romero Dead film. And now stare Tim.
All right, 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
I agree with you, Tim, in that, yeah, that's the scary thing about zombies, that anybody could be your friend, it could be your family member, it could be your daughter. The thing is, that happens a lot in this series. A lot of times in this movie, you have friends and family. There are children, multiple times that children get turned. So that's not anything unique. It's not a unique standout zombie moment. It's sad. It's sad that like this family gets murdered by zombies. But again, that's something we see a lot in this series. It doesn't stand out. My moment, like I said, is a seminal moment in the series, in the evolution of zombies. My moment is basically like I want to say a better moment, a version of yours, but it's a more important version. My moment is set up throughout the movie. Your zombie character is just laying there dying through most of the movie. My character is set up. My character is an important character in the movie, and just again, it's a great payoff, great comeuppance for an evil villain, and I definitely think mine's the stronger moment.
So I actually don't like yours because it goes against what I believe zombies to be. You have a zombie shooting a gun, and that's how he takes down the guy. That's not what I would think zombies would be. And then at the end, he salutes him and walks away. And I'm like, okay, is this really a zombie, or are we back to sort of? Is he back to being a human? I don't think it's the best zombie moment. We might not get to know the little girl, but we get to know her parents, and that's the important part, is the relationship. We know how parents feel about their children, and the fact that one could turn on them in this way. It might happen more often in the series, but this was the first time. This was the most iconic. This is what set the tone for the rest of them. So that's why I think this is the best moment.
I would point out too that about shooting the gun, in your moment, the zombie also uses a weapon. So if we're talking about purely what zombies are supposed to do, yours also uses a weapon. Again, my moment with the gun, the moment with the salute, that's all set up in the earlier scene where he comes in and sees Captain Rhodes. Captain Rhodes make follow, but he sees Uniform, he salutes. They give him the gun. He kind of understands how to use the gun. It's being set up because the zombies now aren't that's the whole point. The zombies aren't what we think they are. Not just these mindless monsters. They actually have memories and they know what they were. And that makes the zombies so much more terrifying and sad because there's still some kind of human trapped inside this monster, instead of just being a shuffling empty shell. And that's what this character does. Bub, you feel an emotional connection to Bub, and you hate Captain Rhodes. And when you see him getting turned about, you get that payoff with the salute. It's just a complete, a great arc. You see a zombie character get an arc in this. And again, that continues on to Land of the Dead, where you start to see again the zombies are actually more like people. They do have more memories than we give them credit for.
That to me goes against what the original concept of what zombies are supposed to be is that they're supposed to be these mindless creatures. They're supposed to be these people we know that are just gone. They're not there anymore. And now it's hard to kill them because we recognize them. She uses a weapon, but I would argue that mine's more in the spirit of a zombie because it's like a trowel. It's like a sharp trowel that she just finds nearby and uses it to like kill her mother. It's not like she's standing there aiming a gun and then saluting and walking away. So I think it almost betrays the idea of what zombies are supposed to be by having the zombie come back and start to regain his sort of humanity, but still be able to do that. I think a better kill is when the little girl kills her parents by actually like eating them and stabbing them, which is what zombies I think were intended to do.
And I agree with you. The original zombies were, but again, like I said, this is the evolution. This is they're starting to defy our expectations here. They're not just what we thought, and that's kind of the point of the movie. Captain Rhodes has that idea. Oh, they're just mindless monsters. They can't do anything, and we're learning. Oh, wait, no, they are. There is something more to them here. And again, like I said, it's a metaphor. They are the other. They're the foreigner. They're the whatever. They're the people we just kind of poo-poo on and say, oh, they're nothing. They're not important, and they're rising up against that. Like you said. Yours is an emotional kill, but I think mine's more emotional because we're emotionally connected to both these characters. We're emotionally connected to Bub. We know what he has. And again, I'll say this too about him shooting the gun. It's not like he's like rapid fire, ping, ping, ping. I mean, he's walking around and just kind of shooting it off, and he gets a couple lucky shots off. It's not like he's aiming. He's not clearing the room and aiming it. It's very zombie-like the way he's shooting that gun. That is in the spirit of zombies and the way he just shuffles and is kind of throwing the gun out.
I thought his arm was pretty steady during the scene, but the evolution. I don't know that I necessarily like that evolution. I think that sort of ruins what zombies are supposed to be. If you want to use that metaphor instead and not you shouldn't make us feel sympathetic for the zombies. There's plenty of other movies that make us feel bad for the outsider and we root for them to like rise up. I think Planet of the Apes is a great example of that. I don't feel the same about zombies because I think by giving them that sort of emotion, it takes away what the original intent of zombies was supposed to be, which is, like I said, having your daughter come to life and be a zombie. And kill her own parents because she doesn't know where she is. I think that's the most heartbreaking. I think that induces the most fear, which this is a horror genre. You're supposed to be afraid. You're not supposed to look for total deeper meaning and watch people laugh as a zombie shoots a gun.
Time. All right. We are going to start with Nicholas. You have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
So the question is best zombie moment. The moment Kirk's talking about involves weapons. It involves a hero who like laughs, or not a hero, but like the human who like laughs in his demise. I don't think it captures the spirit of what the Romero Dead films really were, especially in how they intended to start. I think my moment really does that because it allows you to realize the true horror of zombies, which is that the people you love have become these mindless killing machines that could literally eat you and not blink an eye. That is the point of zombies, and it's supposed to be scary. I don't think Kirk's moment is scary at all because it's in a brightly lit hallway. It's an action scene at its heart because there's a guy walking down, shooting a gun, saluting, and walking away, while the other dude like is strapped and walking away. Night of the Living Dead features people trapped in a house surrounded by zombies. That is the essence of fear. And when they realize that the zombies, they don't know originally that the zombie like virus can transfer, and then when they realize that with the little girl in the basement, it's shocking, it's crazy, and it's the best moment because it reminds us what zombies are supposed to be.
Time. Okay, Kirk, you now have 1 minute when you start talking.
Nick keeps talking about what the Romero zombies were intended to be. I will trust George Romero himself in what the intention of these zombies were to be. At the beginning they were just mindless creatures, but he always intended the story to be more. And this is where we really start to see that evolution of the zombies. We see that it's greatest zombie moment. This is the greatest moment for the zombies. This is the zombies starting to rise up. Nick's saying we don't want deeper horror meaning in horror. I mean, that's what horror is always metaphor. Horror is always has a greater meaning and a greater message. The best of the good horror anyway is always about something more than just, oh, I'm scared. It makes you think, it makes you, question things. And that's what this movie does. This was Romero's intention from the beginning was to make this a metaphor for a lot of different things, and he gets that across here very much with the character of Bub. It's a great setup payoff, the way they set Bub up in the beginning, and the way he gets his revenge and gets his payoff at the end. Also gives us one of the greatest lines in the zombie movie, in the Dead movies: "Choke on him."
Time. All right, I'm gonna clip that out and make it my ringtone. Okay. I want to start off by saying I have a copy here of the only Dead movie I've seen, which is Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Just for you, Kirk. Do you like this movie, Kirk?
It's not bad.
Okay,
it's probably Zack's best.
It's honestly probably true. Okay.
Low bar.
Cody, you get to go first.
I do. So basically, this could go a lot of different directions. I went with Kirk And the reason why I went with Kirk is basically it was a bunch of, no offense to Nick, well, I don't like that zombie. That's not how I like my zombies. It's not scary. Why is he shooting a gun? But basically, Kirk was able to. Again, I think you pick Romero against Kirk. When he picks Romero, it's like he's got a doctorate in this stuff. He just brings everything to the table, and it was just he had a defense for everything that came up, and then I think he just handled it with his closing pretty well. So I went with Kirk.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, I thought Nick actually did a pretty good job arguing for this is like a pure zombie moment. I did end up going with Kirk though. I really liked what Kirk said about subverting expectations and how it's not that stereotypical a family member became a zombie moment. And it does something new and inventive, and I really liked that argument from Kirk.
Okay, my vote doesn't count. I also went with Kirk. Nick did do a good job, but I will say when you open your argument with, I'm the biggest Romero Dead fan. I mean,
I freaking am.
Yeah, just like Kirk loves classic musicals, is the biggest fan. No, I'm just kidding. But I thought Nick actually did do a good job, given the fact that I don't think he's seen the movie that he was talking about. So
Kirk was like, "Yeah, they set up these characters to like their minds are coming back." I was like, "Well, shit, my whole thing was about how that's done."
So we are gonna move on to the final prep question. So it is 2-1 Kirk. So Nick needs this point to stay alive. It is the category of the Wizarding World. And the question is, who is the worst character in a Harry Potter movie? Nick, you drafted this. You get to go first when you start talking.
So it makes me sad because this character has a lot of potential, and I really wanted them to be a good character, but at the end of the day, it just fell flat. And unlike the Bond question, there's actually not a lot to choose from for the opposite reason. There's a lot of great characters throughout the Wizarding World. I picked Fleur Delacour. She's supposed to be this like super badass, like great wizard who does all these great things. Like Moody describes her like as much a fairy princess as I am, but that never comes across because we don't see her battle the dragon. She looks terrified when she sees it in her hand. She drops out of the second one and the third task, and then we just see her like scream and cry at the end. She can't save her own sister. It really makes me sad because I wanted Fleur to be this awesome badass character who does all these incredible things and is actually sort of competition for the other people in the Triwizard Tournament, but she's just not. At the end of the day, she's a girl that quit 2 of the 3. We didn't even get to see her first one. Honestly, she picked probably the easiest looking dragon, and she's just overall a disappointment in the Goblet of Fire. So it makes me sad, but that's why I picked Fleur. Now I'm going to look at Tim.
Okay, great. I love it when you look at me. So let's move over to Kirk. All right, Kirk, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Like Nick, I picked a character who didn't build up to her or didn't live up to her potential and the build up they gave her. The only difference is my character is a major character throughout the entire series, and that is Ginny Weasley, the sisters of the Weasley of Ron and twins. She is in the book described as a very powerful wizard. She's meant to be a almost like a foil for Harry to be able to stand up to him, to be equal to him, to be equal to Ron. And in the movie, she just kind of falls flat. She's just kind of there, and she doesn't really accomplish much. She doesn't really have any, great heroic moments. She's just kind of there to be honestly, she feels like she's the consolation prize for Harry because, Hermione's with Ron. So Harry needs a love interest, and it's going to be Ginny. And they never really fleshed that part of her character out. So I think both as a wizard and as a fully formed character, she falls flat on both ends. And, she's important to the entire story, and she kind of drags it down whenever she's there.
All right. So, Fleur versus Ginny. 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
So what I love most about the Wizarding World, or at least the Harry Potter movies, is the love interest. Like the love stories aren't the main focus. Like, yeah, have Ron and Hermione, but it's not explored. It's a nice, like, it's sprinkles on the cake. So Ginny's never meant to be this like incredible foil, but she also has one of the greatest arcs, subtle arcs, because she is supposed to be a background character. That's why they don't bring the love story to the forefront. She goes from being this helpless girl in Chamber of Secrets who literally gets brought to the Diary against her will to running out with Harry in Half-Blood Prince in her robe to fight off people in the woods. She casts the most powerful spells in Dumbledore's army when they go to the Order of the Phoenix, or when they go to the Department of Mysteries, and she takes out all of the Death Eaters at once. She absolutely becomes this incredibly powerful wizard. And at the end of the day, their relationship is sweet because that's all it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be like super hyper focused on the relationships. At the end of the day, it's just nice icing on the cake.
Like you said, the relationships aren't really that important, which to me, it's like, okay, then just don't have one. This one just feels so tacked on. It's just there. Like there's no chemistry between the two characters. And you don't even really understand why they're together. Then there's just, because the story says they're supposed to be together. There's no like beginning of their relationship. You don't really see it like ebb and flow like you do Ron and Hermione. It's just kind of there. And it's like, okay, they're together because they're supposed to be. And it's very weak. One of the weakest relationships in the entire series. As far as her, her big moments go, I honestly don't really, like, anytime I see her in a fighting, it's always with the group. It's just her and everybody else. I never really see her or really have any memories of her standing out, like you have with, a lot of the other characters, where she stands out and has her, there's no real like Ginny moment where she's like, oh, she's here and she's doing something cool. She's always just there with everybody else and everybody else doing their thing. As far as Fleur goes, she's the character she's supposed to be in the Triwizard Tournament. She's just there, and she's not a horrible character. She's the background character that they bring in, and then she shows up again. It's like, oh, she's marrying one of the Weasleys. That's cool. And she's just in the background. Like, she's not that important. It's not like, as far as like degree of difficulty, you could say she's a worse character, but she's not. It doesn't really matter because she doesn't matter as much as Ginny does.
So at the end of the day, they're awkward high schoolers. Like, they're not supposed to have this like love passion, like bursting off screen chemistry. They're awkward high schoolers who like each other, and it's cute and it's sweet. You want to talk about forced relationships? How about Fleur marrying the forgotten Weasley brother who we literally haven't seen, and now he's the main focus, and she's just the girl behind him, even though she's already been featured in a movie before. She performs terribly in the Triwizard Tournament. She quits 2 of the 3 things, and she's set up by Moody to be this badass character who is as much a fairy princess as I am. I know I said that already, but I really fucking love that line. And she just doesn't do anything. She doesn't deliver. They bring her back, and I'm excited when she comes back. So I'm like, oh, maybe they'll redeem her. And then she's still just this background character who has no moments. Ginny does have moments when they're in the Department of Mysteries and all of the Death Eaters are flying at them. Ginny's the one who casts the spell that literally destroys them and allows them to escape. It's a really badass moment. There's the moment where Harry runs out because Bellatrix is attacking the Weasley's house, and Ginny in a robe runs out into the forest after the boy that she likes, and to help save the chosen one, because he's not just the boy that she likes, he's also the one who's supposed to defeat he's the chosen one. So she's doing her duty in that sense as well. I think Ginny's actually a really great, well-developed character. Fleur is just forgotten, even though they push her in the limelight. It literally feels like it's Crumb versus Diggory versus Harry, and then, oh, Fleur's here too.
Yeah, Fleur comes back. She's in the with the other Weasley brother. Like, oh, okay, they're together. That's kind of a cool callback, and that's really all it is. And that's all she is. She's. I feel like Ginny's as much of a background character by the end as she is, except Ginny's not supposed to be. Ginny's supposed to be like this big deal, and I think her running out was just like a. That scene where she runs out, I feel like it's just like, oh, we have to give her something to do. We have to have some connection between her and Harry because there's so little of it so far. And yeah, they're supposed to be awkward teenagers, but you could develop. There are plenty of high school movies where you have one movie, let alone 8, where you can develop a relationship, and there's none of that here at all.
There is some of that. There's the moment when they hide the book in the room of requirement in Half-Blood Prince. There's moments like that. There's moments where he sees her with Dean and gets jealous. It's very high school like relationship-y tension. And like I said, the Harry Potter movies are not supposed to be about this chemistry building. At the end of the day, Ginny is just this girl that Harry likes and winds up marrying later on. But she's also this powerful wizard. She provides great support to other characters, like that moment with Molly when Molly kills Bellatrix. Like, not my daughter, you bitch. It's like, oh, that's awesome. That moment wouldn't happen if we didn't care at least a little bit about Ginny.
Yeah, but that could have been one of the other, 10 Weasley kids. That was Mrs. Weasley's moment, not hers. I will say too, you brought it up. She is part of that horrible epilogue at the end of
strike it from the record. Okay, Kirk, you get to go first to close. 1 minute when you start talking.
I was going to say that she is part of that horrible epilogue in Deathly Hallows 2, so we have to take points up for that. But yeah, Fleur is not meant to be a big. Yeah, they talk her up because she's there and this character in the movie they got to talk up. But she's not meant to be this great character that's going to save the day and do all this great stuff and really get involved in these other characters' lives. She's a character that moves in and out, shows up for Triwizard, comes back when she's married another character, and that's cool. It's just like I said, it's a callback. Ginny is meant to be a central character in these stories, a central figure, a central person in Harry's life, and you never get that sense unless there's a few scenes like in Deathly Hallows where they force feed it on you. It's like, oh yeah, they're together now. I kind of forgot about that. But she's never really. Like I said, those scenes where she's fighting those wizards. I think that's one of half a dozen spells are being cast and fought by the whole entire group. She's part of the ensemble. She never really lives up to the hype of being that one important character. She's a lesser Weasley character, and she's a lesser student in the whole grand scheme of things.
Time. Okay, Nick, you now have 1 minute when you start talking.
I well up every time at that epilogue. That epilogue is fantastic. And Jenny is and it's great. It's just great to see Harry living a happily ever after life, because at the end of the day, Jenny's not supposed to be this central figure throughout the movies in Harry's life. She becomes one later on, but the fact is she's part of Harry's friend group. She's his friend's sister. Who he has a crush on, and she's also built up to be this powerful witch, and she shows that in multiple movies. So she serves her purpose incredibly well. She makes you like her enough to care about moments like the Molly Weasley moment, and like Harry kissing her before he goes off to find the diadem while the castle's falling down. It's a sweet moment. It's nice to see that they wound up together. Fleur Delacour is set up as this powerful witch, this powerful character, and she fails at every step. She couldn't even save her own sister from a lake. And then when she comes back, she's wasted even more as a background character. There's almost no point to having her there. It makes me sad because I wanted her to be great, and she just wasn't.
Time. Sorry, I started laughing when you said lake. Okay, so...
Well, it's the Black Lake, and it's not where Harry finds the sword, so yeah.
I will say this. I once won a point in a title match of Nerdgasm against Caleb Coho for best scene in a Harry Potter movie, and I picked the epilogue, and I won. So I just want to have that for the record, because I also love that scene. I tear up every time. Okay, I get to go first, right? Yes. I went with Nick. I think that Nick's very, very well explained why Ginny is important in all of the things that Kirk said was wrong. And I thought that he did a good job of explaining why Fleur was built up to be one thing and then just could not get the job done at all. So I went with Nick. Cody, where are you going?
I just want to call bullshit on one thing. Is Nick wanting Fleur to be this great character. Listen, it was a Triwizard tournament with 2 competitors enter, and that was basically it the entire time. It was Nick for me just overall, because I think he does. I think Kirk's nitpicks were valid, but I think he had enough stuff to go against why Ginny didn't need to be the star-studded part of that's not what character she was built up through the series, and gave me evidence of that. And I think Kirk couldn't really tell me, said Fleur was a background character. I guess Ginny had more movies, and I guess that was one of the main arguments. But overall, Nick, I think, had it on this one.
And yeah, Robert, your vote doesn't count.
I also went with Nick. I think Nick argued this one really, really well. Fleur was not one of the first ones that came to my mind, but after hearing Nick talk about it, it's that totally makes sense. And I think that Kirk's points against Ginny are valid, especially in some of the comparison between books and movies and stuff. But just at the end of the day, Ginny has moments and Fleur doesn't, and that's a pretty hard argument to fight against.
All right.
Got any more zombie questions?
Yeah.
We are tied.
Tiebreaker. Which Wizarding World film?
Yeah.
We are tied. We are going to the speed round. Here's how this is going to work. Cody and I have devised a question. We are going to say that question, the category, and all that stuff. Once I have said the question twice, one of you, whoever answers first, will be going first. You each will have a 45-second opener, if you will, and a 30-second rebuttal. You can use your time however you want. You don't have to just talk about your thing. You can talk about whatever you want with your time. And we'll vote the same way. So, are there any questions about how the speed round is going to work?
Can we use a question Robert writes right now instead?
No. We actually wrote this one earlier, so it didn't get made in the middle of the match like it does.
Normally does.
Okay, so your question is coming from the category of, I guess you could say, Warzone in general. The question is, what is the saddest moment in a non-fandom movie? And it could be any movie of all time. What is the saddest moment in a non-fandom movie?
So glad you and Coho decided to keep old fucking Yeller in fandom. I usually don't like to go first, but I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Just in case Kirk stumbles upon this and steals it because he knows me.
Okay.
I'm going to say Brooks killing himself in the Shawshank Redemption.
Ooh.
Okay.
So, that's great.
Because if
you
Kirk picked that, I would have been like, cool. Have a good night.
All right, give me one. I think I have it, but I just want to check a couple other things, make sure I don't miss anything.
Is it?
I'm going to do the death and burial of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in Amadeus.
All right. So, I will leave both of you on screen. Nick, you answered first, so you will be going first. You have 45 seconds when you start talking.
Doesn't count. That doesn't count either.
That counts.
Nope.
Clock's ticking.
Start it over, Tim. Brooks is just this genuinely great old man from the Shawshank Redemption who makes you feel for the rest of the characters when you see what he has to go through. The fact that just living your life in the outside of the world could drive you to such a place to hang yourself in your own halfway house is one of the saddest moments I've ever seen in a movie, and I cry literally every time. It makes you worried for the characters that are still stuck in the jail because once they eventually get out, they might have to go through the same thing. The fact that you go up there and you think he's about to move on to a better life because he carves his name saying he was here and he's about to leave, and then you just see the desk kick out from under his feet and he's hanging there. I literally well up every time. The fact that he was driven to such madness of not wanting to leave that he almost kills Haywood. He has him by the throat, and when he breaks down crying, it's so incredibly sad. That whole scene makes me cry every time.
All right, Kirk, 45 seconds.
Scene I chose for the saddest death scene in movie history is the death of and burial of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in Amadeus. The scene is just so devastating, where you finally see him and Salieri coming together. Salieri figure out who he is and who this person is, and he's coming to the end of his life. One of the great geniuses of all time, one of the most brilliant men ever to live on the face of the earth, and he's going to die penniless and just this horrible, sad death. And then when you see him and he's wrapped in that shroud and they dump him in that mass grave, it is just so devastating to see that waste of a human life, and just everything he was, everything he had to offer, and he just dumped in this penniless pauper's grave. It's so depressing. I watched that movie and I'm depressed for a week.
Nick, 30 seconds.
Geniuses tend to be jerks. They tend to be so focused on their thing, and Mozart is like that in Amadeus. So the fact that he died penniless, we learned from Whiplash that people like Mozart would rather die penniless, would rather die but still achieve what they did, and he did. He became the greatest composer, and it makes you sort of happy at the end. So the fact of the matter is Mozart as a jerk doesn't compare to Brooks as this sweet, sweet old man, and he's been this sweet old man and friend to Andy throughout the entirety of the movie until he finally meets his death, and then you fear for the characters because you know what Brooks had to go through, and it's absolutely devastating.
Time. Kirk, 30 seconds.
Brooks's death isn't as devastating because he was an old man. He was at the end of his life. His only other option was to kill himself or go back to that horrible prison. So it wasn't like he had a good option either way. His death is a kind of upbeat. He says, "Oh well, guys, I guess I'm going to go." He doesn't seem too sad about his death. He doesn't seem too sad to be going. He's okay with it. So that kind of lessens the blow of it. And also the story overall continues. Amadeus' story ends, and again, it is sad. You have that music, the Lacrimosa, the Requiem, with the saddest piece of music ever playing over that death and that burial. It's devastating. It's depressing.
Time.
tried not to make facial expression.
I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job, Nick. Whatever happens, man. Great job.
You too, buddy. Always a good time. What you guys looking at?
I'm thinking, and I was copying my friend.
Got it.
Robert's made
All right.
ice over there, man. He's like, I'm done.
It's not easy. I'm just internalizing it.
I really like Caleb Bateman Wright's trivia answer.
Okay.
Who go?
I think Robert goes. You get to go last.
Sure. Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
I went with Kirk. I think both of these moments are really, really sad. I think both of them did an okay job of attacking the other persons as far as supporting their own. I really like what Kirk got in there about the end, about like the things surrounding the scene. So not just what's physically happening, but the music and the way that the scene is staged and all that kind of stuff. I thought those sort of like filmmaking stuff that he talked about did a really good job. And both of these are pretty devastating, but you got to make a decision. So I went with Kirk.
I went with Nick. I thought Nick's whole explanation of the scene and not only, sorry, Cody, and not only what happens in the scene itself, but how it affects the rest of the movie as well. And just how, you build up a really, really great character. I thought his takedown of Amadeus is a dick for the whole movie. So, it is what it is. Like, that worked for me better. This was tough. Because I've seen Shawshank a lot. And I've seen Amadeus once, and I knew exactly what Kirk was talking about when he brought it up. So it was very tough. Cody, you get to decide it.
Right. By the way, I'm just going to start it.
That's what you get by sitting in the middle. So just
you can pick this shit. I'm just going to start this both off by fuck you both. So I don't like either one of you. So there's no hard feelings at the end of this. Or there's more hard feelings. I don't know how this works. Okay. So I basically went on it. I think. So this is very nitpicky because I think this is very close. But I believe that Nick used more of an opposite movie than Amadeus to go against his movie and didn't actually tack Amadeus that much. He used Whiplash. He said he's kind of a dick in that movie, but overall did not give me a real answer why that's not very sad. Kirk used almost his entire time to tell me why it's not sad, even if I 100% disagree with Kirk that he's happy to go and thinks it's chipper on the other side. I had to go with Kirk.
All right. Well, that means your winner, Kirk Kowalkowski, making it through another match. Kirk, the number 1 seed, taking out Nick to move on to the finals to play Amaru Moses. So we are going to start by talking to Nicholas.
Ah!
Nick, that was you yelling again. I get it. Nick, a great match, a great run in the tournament. How are you feeling about the debate tonight?
I am so happy that because, like, in my head, I was like, we're going to get halfway through the zombie question. I'm just going to be like, Kirk, how's your day going, man? Like, probably having a good time, right? Just give up. And I didn't. I thought I did okay. No, I'm all right. I would have voted the other way, but who wouldn't have? But no, Kirk's really great. It's always fun talking with Kirk about movies, of which we are both passionate. So I'm quite happy for him, and I'll be watching his career closely with great interest.
Okay. Jesus. All right. So Nick, like I said, you had a good run in the tournament. But now, is there anybody that you want to play
Cody,
when you come?
What? Sorry, you didn't get to finish your question.
I don't want that more than I don't want anything ever in my entire life. Go play at the video store.
The thing I will say, I know he's the champion, so like you kind of have to, you got to do shit to like get there. But I would love to debate Jacoby someday. I think that'd be a fun time.
All right, fair enough. All right, so yeah, no, it's not happening. We had to debate the chicken sandwich thing, and I'm still not recovered. So let's move over to the winner, Kirk, number 1 seed. You won another match, moving on to the finals to play Amaru. How are you feeling about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, this match I was sweating because I know Tibbs good, and I know I needed that chest burster question because I knew I was losing Harry Potter, and what did I say?
Tim, everybody
sorry.
in this community puts them together. It's fantastic.
Sorry,
you're good.
Nick.
You're good.
But yeah, and I knew I was losing Harry Potter. I think, to be fair, I'll give Nick credit. He did better on Night of the Living Dead than I did on Harry Potter. And I tend to choke on the speed round questions. Robert knows all about that. So I was nervous going in, and that last question, I think we both did a really good job arguing it, and it was going to come down the wire. So I was sweating the whole way. But as far as Amaru goes, I'm excited for that because Amaru's another guy I talk to about movies a lot, and he and I disagree a lot, and we get along, but there's always a little edge to our conversations in our disagreements. So I'm excited to see how this plays out.
And what about we're gonna film that match soon. If you were to beat Amaru, you would then go on to play Jacoby Bancroft, the current champion. Is that something that you would be excited about? Or
absolutely, yeah. Jacoby's another guy. I mean, Jacoby's reminds me a lot of Nick. He's a guy who can talk a lot, but who also knows how to back it up. He's not just BS, and he knows his stuff. So I mean, he's champion for a reason. He deserves it. And if I'm able to beat Amaru and get to him, that'll be a great match. I'll be honored to play it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kirk, congrats on the win. We'll see you in the finals. Final thoughts from Robert.
Yeah, this was a good one. Basically, every question that we were split on, I think, was really close. These guys obviously know what they're doing. That speed round question is super, super broad, and they both, I think, went in a way with it where they probably could have won that question. It just comes down to, that's why we have 3 judges. But this is a great match.
Yeah, Cody, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, it's just a really good match. I did watch the tape back. I did say that Nick is always right, so I'm never going to live that fucking clip down. But I meant in their own heads, but again, revise, put off. It's just Kirk is super underrated as a debater, I think. Like, when we go back, like, when we talk about, like, great players, like, Kirk isn't, like, people just automatically threw out, but I think, like, he's just proven it. They deserve the 1 seed. He deserved where he's gone in this tournament. I think Amaru's in an uphill battle, honestly, because I think Coho kept it close with him, and I think Nick was arguably our number 3, like, best debater, like, with Jacoby at the top, Kirk, and then Nick. I just think for this to be this close, I think Amaru's going to have to pick smart choices against Kirk, or it could end up like an Andrew Barr situation. Like, that's how good Kirk is playing right now.
Absolutely. So, Kirk moving on to the finals. The number 1 seed is going to be taking on the number 14 seed in Amaru Moses in the finals. So it's going to be very interesting. We will be back with that match very, very soon, next week to be exact. So we will see you guys next week with that finals match before Mayhem. So thank you for watching. For Cody and Robert, Kirk and Nick, this has been Fanzone. We'll see you guys real soon with the finals.
Asshole! That's my bad. I was sending a tweet.